I thought if you said what was the overwhelming theme of minicamp, to me, it's Hufanga. I mean, we need to stop worrying about safety. I think they've got safety covered with Hufanga. Yeah, I mean, I think Hufanga is looking better and better and better. And when you watch him, he just looks a little quicker. He looks about a half step faster, and he already was playing at a really high level at the end of last year. So he's just a guy who's settling in. He loves the process. He lives it. And they got tremendous confidence in him. D'Amico spoke glowingly of him. And then when you watch him on the field, he plays with confidence. I mean, moves with confidence. And Jimmy Ward, by the way, is just in absolutely incredible shape. Looks like he could play like Sunday. So those two guys, I think, we talk so much about safety, but I could see safety and overall that secondary with the addition of Charvarius Ward. I could see the secondary being, maybe the strength of the defense. It could pivot a little bit from the defensive line to the defensive backfield.
So safety coach Daniel Bullocks, he mentioned Hufanga, and it's not just off-season talk when you said it. He said that he looks faster and he looks twitchier, and D'Amico Ryans was talking about his approach and how it's consistent and how that sets him apart from everybody else. And when you have a young player like Hufanga and he's asking questions in meetings and, overnight now he's a guy who all of a sudden he's the communicator on the field, like that means a lot. And if you could tell just by the way that D'Amico was talking about him, talking about Hufanga, that this guy wants to be better. He wants to be the guy. And everybody knows, he trains with Troy Polamalu. So he has that going for him. But if he's going to produce on the field and he's putting in an effort off the field, then I agree that, if that's how he's going to prepare, then the 49ers are in good hands. The way that I was looking at it is, I actually don't think safety would be a big deal, even if he was just slightly competent, because there are so many other good players around him. I think this is going to be the first year in a long time where the 49ers have above average cornerback play, which couldn't be further from the truth a season ago.
It's interesting because the defensive backfield is, the one thing, there's not a lot you can glean from minicamp, right? Because you're a month away from camp. They're shaking off the rust.
Half the starters aren't there.
Half the starters aren't there. They're meeting the coaches. There's a bunch of new coaches. So especially on the offensive side. So you're kind of trying, it's an introduction. It's the first time you're seeing your rookies and your veterans blended together. You're kind of taking inventory on what you got going to camp. You're figuring out, do you need something more? You're kind of just trying to piece the whole thing together. And you're just looking, I'm just looking for guys who stand out, guys who are bouncing around, guys that are in great shape, guys that are playing with all kinds of, speed and energy. And the guys that stood out to me were Quantrez Knight, the cornerback from UCLA, Samuel Womack, the corner from Toledo, and to a little bit lesser degree to Tariq Castro Fields. All three of those guys, Womack and Knight are really, there's a lot of confidence there. I don't know if you've interviewed Womack, but you can see his confidence on the field. He moves like a guy who knows, you know what, I'm pretty damn good. And Quantrez Knight is another guy. You if you watched him, you would say third, fourth round pick, and they got him after the draft. So I'm sure he lacks something, probably a little speed, stop for the stopwatch. But those three guys really all stood out to me. And with the addition of Charvarius Ward, the improvement of Hufanga, some young additions on the perimeter, the defensive backfield's quite a bit deeper.
And the defensive backfield, they don't have to be this elite tier because Nick Bosa, because Eric Armstead, because of the pass rush that they have. But I want to talk Womack, and I haven't interviewed him yet. I do want to reach out to him. You don't have that type of production on the ball in college without being confident. You don't have that type of production without kind of knowing what's coming. So when you saw him, was he primarily lining up on the outside? Was he inside in the slot, or where was he at?
Womack looked like he was inside. Interestingly enough, we had speculated, I think last time you and I, or maybe it was a couple times ago, that maybe Emmanuel Mosley would play inside, and Mosley stayed outside. So they kept Mosley outside. Ambry was outside as well. and they had Womack, I think, inside. But he is small, but man, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's, really, really athletic. He moves really naturally, really explosive movements, and just has that kind of strut out there. Like, hey, man, I mean, when you can show up on an NFL field as a first timer and you're still kind of strutting around, it's like, wow, I mean, that's a whole nother level of athletes. And then if you still look like the most athletic guy, that's saying something.
Let me ask you this. It's June, and I know there's not a lot to glean from in OTAs, and we probably haven't seen real football. Like, they're not wearing pads. But hypothetically, who plays more snaps for the 49ers in 2022? Samuel Womack or Ambry Thomas?
I would say it's probably still Thomas, but I think they're both going to be key cogs. I really do. Because Thomas also looks better. He looks better than he did at the end of last year. And that's a great thing to see, because some of these guys, as long as the arrows keep pointing up, you're doing fine. It's just when you start making the same mistakes over and over again. So I thought Ambry Thomas looked like a fish out of water in camp last year. And then early in the year, he just looked like very tentative. And then he got a little better. Little better. By the end of the year, I think you could make an argument he was their best cover man.
Yeah, I think in camp last year, Thomas looked like he should have been undrafted. Like, he looked like he had no confidence. He didn't know what was coming. Even though he timed well, like he ran fast, he didn't really play fast. And then toward the end of the year, he kind of stopped thinking so much. I think just started playing football, and that was good to see. So, yeah, I'm interested to see all these guys taking the next step. With that said, all the cornerbacks you named, is Deommodore Lenoir going to make the roster?
We didn't even mention Jason Verrett.
Right.
And Darqueze Dennard.
They like because he's a veteran.
Yeah, they do like him. And D'Amico talked about him as well. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Most teams, you got to have 5 good corners. There have been years where the Niners have had a hard time finding 5 good corners. They're going to show up in camp this year with 10.
Yeah, it's so different from last year.
Very, very different. Very different.